Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast where we're seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. We are also here as a platform for leaders to come together to unite, to develop and empower other leaders in the areas of business, family, and community. I'm your host, Lafayette Lane, and today we are joined, and I'm also joined by my co-host, John LeBrun. Today we are joined by our special guest, Jonaed Iqbal. Put those hands together, put those clap emojis in the comment section for our special guest. He has joined us today to have a conversation of why a college degree does not define your success. This is going to be a good one. He's on here because he helps those without college degrees find meaningful jobs that pay well. He is the founder of NoDegree.com. He's also the host of the No Degree podcast, where he interviews those without college degrees and shares their stories. Today, he has joined us right here on the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited today.
Thank you so much, man. Well, let's just jump right into the conversation. This is very interesting, and I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions around college and maybe some myths that we may think that are true, and I think that we can just dig through those tonight in this conversation. I think, Jonaed, the first question I want to ask you, because we're talking about this whole topic of college and it not defining your success. Were you a college participant? Did you go to college?
Man, you have to start off with the heavy hitting and expose me. So I unfortunately have a master's degree from Columbia University.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Columbia.
So I was an active participant. I was actually a good student.
So you're a smart guy. Because everybody can't get into Columbia.
No, so look, now that's where I'm going to counter you.
Okay.
I think smart has a big definition, right? So I'm good at academics, and I was good enough in that route to get into Columbia.
Because so you're a smart guy.
Yeah, no,
I love that.
The thing is,
I know exactly what you're saying.
Because it's more that, like a mechanic that knows how to fix every car that walks into his shop.
No, I got you.
You know, he's also a smart guy, or a girl that knows how to read people. You know, in certain situations, like there's so many types of smart. So yeah, I'm academically smart to get into good colleges. Yes,
that's what I'm referring to. Academically smart. If you want me to, let me say it that way. Academically smart to get into Columbia. You had the grades. You had the necessary academia smarts to get into Columbia. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So how then did you start this whole concept of no degree when people would be like, wait a minute, you have a master's degree. How do we get to no degree?
So look, I'll tell you, a big thing is I sort of had to go to college. Like my parents, as immigrant parents, like they would be, even the other day, my mom's like, oh, people with degrees don't do what you do. Like, what do you do? It's one of those things. I just ignore my parents, when it comes to that. But when I was in grad school, April 2014, I came across a thread on Reddit. People asked, for those of you without a college degree who make over six figures, what do you do and how'd you get the job? And it was jobs like, I'm a forklift operator, I'm a surveyor, I'm a recruiter, I'm a claims adjuster. And people don't grow up saying, I want to grow up and be a claims adjuster. Right? People don't do that. People don't grow up and say, hey, I want to be a land surveyor. And they asked them, when they answered how they got the job, it was like my uncle, my cousin, my friend. And then as I started doing more research, I was like, oh, you know what? There are plenty of jobs that don't require college degrees. It's just you have to really know that field and you have to be strategic about it. And then I bought the domain and the rest was history. Now, I was in grad school and I got an internship at the time. And I come from like a poor family, so I kind of needed the job. Kind of thing. So I was already almost done with grad school. So that's kind of why. If it was if I found out at a different time, I would have gone differently. But also going through school, school always sort of came easy. First 2 years I did okay in school, but after the second, third grade, I did really well in school. It was I was either going to be at the top or top three, right? And I knew kids that would study harder than me, longer than me, but, I studied half the time and great. But that's how it is. Just like that one kid in football, you work out all day and this kid just works out once a week, eats whatever he wants, and then he'll dust you. It's just how it is. Some people are just better at certain things. And then when I went to Columbia, what I saw was the kids were very wealthy. I'm talking about, I had a friend, his dad was paying $5,000 a month rent for him, was paying $5,000 a month rent for his brother to go to school. And money wasn't, he didn't have to worry. So these kids always had tutors, they had access. Like my girlfriend went to school with someone. When the person graduated the program, the father created a company, hired a CEO, made him a director. So
Lord.
these kids had like,
that company's about to fail.
And he hired a company CEO. And then I saw even in my high school, like someone paid like, one of the parents paid like $6,000 for someone to help them with their essay. So a lot of times these Ivy League kids, they have tremendous tutors. They have like everything they do. Like I know like they have like a fencing coach. They have this type of coach. They have this. So it's literally like, it's like you have so much money invested in you every year. Like the parents are investing 20 to 50K. It's like, how do you even compete? And then that kind of really showed me like the economic disparity. Like even someone with, who comes from a different background, who does go to college and is smart, it's just hard to compete because at the end of the day, it's like you just have so many other things that kind of weigh you down. Like that's real life, right? These kids don't experience life in the same way.
Wow. So I saw a study once that was, and it's been a while, but it was basically talking about how there's that old adage that people used to say, A students work for B students, and A and B students work for the C student who owns the company or something like that. I used to hear those things. And the survey was looking into why do so many straight A / what do they call it when you're the top of your class in high school? Valedictorians get out of high school and then struggle to find a direction, or they're fine until college. But once they get past that, there seems to be this cutoff, not 100%, but I totally get it. I had 2 valedictorians when I graduated, and I don't know what they're doing now. It's been a while, but the first 5 years out of all the school, they seem to be lost, I guess you could say.
You know what?
And
no, go ahead. Sorry.
What they were alluding to was some people are just naturally gifted at sort of so school does not necessarily prepare you for life. Yeah. Because school teaches you how to memorize and regurgitate, flush it out, memorize, and do it again. My brother was amazing at it. I was terrible at it. My son is really good student. And I'm like, oh no. And so, but some people, I'm teasing, but what some people find though, is when you get into life post school, that school was so easy. Now they're having to navigate other things. Yeah. That can often be difficult. And because there was not a lot of pushback in school, you didn't have to work hard to get your certain grades and so forth. And that's sort of what the study was alluding to. Yeah, no, and that's a big thing. It's that real life is different because real life emotional intelligence plays a factor. Real life is not a test. And then the thing about being successful is school teaches you like not to fail. Like a bad grade is bad, right? You get in trouble for getting bad grades. But in real life, you have to fail, right? If you want to be successful at a company, successful in your career, you have to take risks, right? In life, the people who do the best are the people who've sort of taken risks and all that. So that's the other thing. And then like I went to high school that was a competitive high school in New York. It's like one of the top 20 high school in the nation, and we were filled with valedictorians. So now it's like a bunch of valedictorians in one place. And eventually what happens is like the grades are very defined, it's very structured, like here's how you get an A, here's what you need to do. But life is not structured at all. It's like go out there, do it. Like, do you want to drink every night and go to sleep, or do you want to work out? Do you want to do this? Do you want to eat healthy? It's like so many choices. And school is a very bubble environment that it's, hey, you do a couple things and you do them well and you're made for it, you can do very well.
So what would you say to someone who may be in that mindset that, hey, college is not for me, and that's fine? What advice would you give them to find their path of success if they're not going to pursue the degree route?
So I would kind of look into what are they interested in and what are they good at and how do they like learning. So some people like learning with their hands. So I would recommend, if you like learning with your hands, look into something. What do you like building? What are you passionate about? And figure out, okay, and be like smart about it, because let's say you're passionate about video games, but most of the time being a game tester is not a very profitable career, right? So then you got to think, like, what do you like about games? Do you like the community aspect? Do you like the marketing aspect? Do you like the problem solving aspect? So you like problem solving. Then from there, it's like, what kind of jobs can you problem solve? And then I would say go out and do different jobs, but you got to figure out like what you like doing. And then I recommend, there's like something called the Gallup Strength Finder test. It's like $50. I recommend people take that. It's a very good test. And as a career coach, I give it to a lot of my clients. It'll kind of give you an idea, like, are you like an outward facing person? Are you a thinking face person? Do you like building teams? And then from there, you can really figure out. And then sometimes you just always have to, I would say, always keep moving forward, always learn, network, work on your emotional intelligence. I think that's one thing that if you don't have a degree, your emotional intelligence is something you can 100% use to set yourself apart. Because you could be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't know how to deal with people, you don't know how to deal with toxic people. Because I've seen very smart people, they get into a relationship with a toxic person, and all of a sudden, life is done. Like, I've known millionaires who have like a bad spouse, and that's it. They're unhappy. Yes, they may make money, but they're unhappy. So learn emotional intelligence, learn how to network with people, and learn other people, but also learn yourself. Like, learn what you're good at, learn what you're not good at. And I tell people that there are 4 types of skills: skills you're good at that you like doing, skills you're good at that you don't like doing, skills you're bad at that you like doing, and skills you're bad at that you don't like doing. A lot of people get jobs and things they're good at that they like doing, and these are burnout skills. So what happens is they come home and they're super exhausted at the end of the day, and they don't want to do anything. They don't want to exercise. And I understand. So you ideally want a job that minimizes that and focuses on the things that you're good at that you like doing. And it's going to take time to figure out. Like, it's not like, hey, at 18, you're going to figure it out. It's like you're going to get a job. You're going to be like, hey, I hated that job, but I like this aspect. And then from there, from your next job, you're going to get bits and pieces. And it's a lifelong journey.
So on that lifelong journey discussion, how many clients do you get that they feel like, okay, I'm 20, I got to figure life out in the next 18 months,
Yeah.
right? And what advice would you have for them going through their 20s?
You don't have to figure out life in your 20s. I know people who are just figuring the life out in their 40s and 50s. Now, you don't want to figure it out and that late, but you still have a lot of time. I think a lot of people, they look at, you know, especially social media, they look at, oh, this person's so rich, this person has it all, this person has it figured out. But I come across plenty of people who supposedly, you know, they did it well, they went to a good school, they have a good paying job, and they're not happy. And, you know, versus some people who may not have the best life, and they're happy. They're like, okay, you know, things will get better. They have a good mindset. So it's about doing a journey and realizing that you have time. I would say it's like, just keep on moving forward, right? That's really what you want to do. You want to keep moving forward. And I tell people, everybody has a different road in life. You may take 2 years to figure out where you want to go. Some people may take 5 years. Some people may take 6 years. But do it your own way. Don't necessarily say, I have to do it in 18 months, because that's just an artificial timeline. And why 18 months? Why not 17 months? Why not 22 months? Like, why 18 months? Why do you have to figure yourself out at 22? It's like, grow as a person, you know, get better at certain things, and work on your weaknesses. And if you keep doing that, you'll go pretty far.
One of the things that you help people do, I'm sorry, were you about to say something, John?
No, you're good.
Okay. One of the things that you help people do is find jobs. What are some things that people can do, like resume writing, to brand themselves, to present themselves to employers that are looking for candidates, whether they have a degree or not, to market themselves, to put themselves in the best position so they can get that job that they are looking for?
So it's going to differ by whether they have a lot of experience, mid-level experience, or high-level experience, right? However, for all candidates, I generally recommend networking, and network with people in the field that you want or at the companies you want, and ask for advice. You know, ask for, hey, what kind of skills do I need? What kind of skills stand me apart? And the advice they give, listen to it. So if someone says, hey, these are the things you need to know. Here are the courses you need to take. Go take those courses and kind of get closer to the field. Read books by people in that area. Listen to podcasts made, because now it doesn't matter. You're marketing, there's a marketing podcast. There's a sports psychology podcast. There's a psychology podcast. There's a programming podcast. There's so many different ways to learn. The other thing is, on a resume aspect, there's something called an ATS, an applicant tracking system. So companies use this because, think about it, they get 100, 200 applications per job. They have 5, 10 jobs. How are you going to keep track on these resumes? Like, you're not going to keep track of 1,000 emails. You're going to go in a system, it's going to look, and you're going to preview the resumes. Now, the thing is, now you're going to go, oh, I'm looking for marketing jobs. I'm going to eliminate the resumes that don't have marketing at all. Because if you don't have marketing at all in your resume, it's going to be kind of weird, right? If you're applying for a marketing job. So then they're going to find ways to eliminate, because here's the other thing is, like, 30 to 40% of applicants are international applicants that don't have any chance of getting the job, because you have a lot of people who are applying from all over the world hoping to break into the U.S. So all they do is just apply, hoping that, oh, we're going to just bring you over, but it's not the case. So now the recruiters have to, it's a waste of their time to get these people in other countries. So they may look for U.S., they may look for other things, eliminate the people who require sponsorship. Now, you want to keep a simple, clean layout. And if you want to send I can give you guys a format that you can send out to your audience. You want to have a simple, clean layout. A resume is a document designed for someone who's only going to look at it for 6 to 10 seconds. If they like what they see, they may spend another 20 to 45 seconds. But here's the truth. Most people, even if they interview you, won't read your full resume. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have been on interviews where you're kind of sitting and they're like, oh, so do you have this experience? And it's like, yeah, dude, it's right on my resume. But you can't say that because you're being interviewed. So you have to kind of realize, like, hey, they're not going to read the whole thing. You have to put your accomplishment, make it very easy to read so it's easy to see where you worked at, what titles you had, and how long you worked at each place. And then a few bullet points to kind of show, like, hey, you did X, Y, Z, and put a lot of numbers. Like, a lot of people I'll see on resumes, they'll put sections and they'll put core competency. They'll put, like, creative, problem solver, thinker. But it's like, and I tell so, or like, expert sales. And I asked someone, I was like, look, are you going to think this person has leadership because they just put leadership in a box? Like, no, you're not going to think they have leadership. Write about times you trained people. Write about times you got people promoted. Write about times you implemented programs that led to results. Give the hard skills. And I tell people, don't put, like, fluff. People will say, like, I efficiently did this. And I was like, are you going to put you inefficiently did this? Like, everything, like, recruiters see these things all the time to the point that it loses meaning. You just got to keep it simple, easy to read, easy to understand, numbers and accomplishments.
So basically, on that resume, take out all the little one words saying that you're a leader and put what you actually did. Like, what have you actually accomplished in your previous jobs or at school? Those types of things. Yeah. If you increase sales, how much have you increased sales?
And what are the dollar amounts? And, if you train people, how many people did you train? If you called people, how many people did you call per day? I had one kid, he got a job at Tesla. He worked at a tire shop. And, people will say, I work in a fast-paced environment. And I say, okay, how do you say that? And then he worked there 6 months. And in 6 months, he changed 10,000 tires. Now, you don't even need to say fast-paced. That's just a lot of tires, right? So you could tell it's fast-paced. So those are the types of things. And when I talk to a lot of people have accomplished more than they think they have. Because, they do their jobs day to day and they forget, like, every day I'm working with 50 customers a day. So in a week, I'm dealing with 250 customers, thousands of customers a month. Did you get customers coming back? Did you get reviews? So all these things really have an impact. And now the other thing is, if you're trying to get into a new area, now more than ever, there are online courses that you can take. So it will show, like, hey, I took this online course. I'm really learning. It's about getting in front of them and demonstrating your knowledge. There are projects you can take. Like, if you're trying to break into marketing, go approach a local store and be like, hey, look, I'm, new and hungry. I see that you have a little Instagram page. I'd like to help you create posts for it. Most stores are not they're going to say, okay, cool. Like, we're not doing much on it. Do something. And then that's how a lot of people get their start in marketing. A lot of people in programming showcase how showcase a couple projects, like, hey, you know what? I built this game. I did this thing on the app. I've had people with no experience get, entry-level programming jobs through projects, right? Demonstrate, I created this chess game. I created this. I had the program. And then just network. Go into these communities. There's, like, Discords for, like, sales. There's Discords for this. Join these communities. Join Facebook groups. Do that, and you'll get somewhere.
So create a portfolio is essentially where you're kind of getting at.
You are a living, breathing portfolio, and so keep on adding things to yourself.
So how important is it for somebody when they're going through this process to pay attention to their social media?
So look, here's the thing. You don't need a social media, because if you look at a lot of people on LinkedIn who work at Google, they're not active at all, right? However, if you don't have a degree, a lot of times you are not going to get the benefit of the doubt. Social media is the easiest way to seriously build connections. Like, I built connections. Like, how I met you? I did well on LinkedIn, and then I was like, look, I'm not getting the press I deserve. That I want. I got to get active on Twitter. And I only have, like, less than 400. I'm spending more time on Twitter. And then I met this other guy, Troy. Somehow we connected, and we got on a call, and he was like, yo, you got a good LinkedIn following. I gave him some LinkedIn tips. He gave me some Twitter tips, and that's how I got on this podcast. So you got to think, like, how would I have ever gotten into this podcast had I not built up a LinkedIn and then got on Twitter and made the kind, so these types of things, like so many things happen when you put yourself out there. And social media is like, I've met so many connections. I learned how to write resumes from someone I met on LinkedIn, So I've gotten referrals. I've gotten people jobs. I've hired people just through social media. And it's like, and the beauty is, during the pandemic, I didn't have to leave, so I didn't have to worry. And then on other days, it's like, I don't even have to ever leave my room. Not that I don't like leaving my room. I'm just saying that it is a very strong flexibility. I don't have to go out and kind of do things. Like, I can add so much value just sort of in my office space.
What are some of the disparities that you see between those trying to get a job that do have a degree and those that don't have a degree? So, what are some of those disparities that you see?
So people without the degree, oftentimes they're seen as less intelligent. They're seen as less capable. There's like an assumption that there's a reason why. And people without degrees have to prove themselves in some capacity. Like, you tell someone, I don't have a degree, you have to like prove like, hey, this guy doesn't have a degree, but he's still good, Whereas the college degree graduate has like something, they just have that positive assumption. Now, just realize that that's the initial bias that people have. You can easily get around initial bias by putting yourself out there. And, it's funny, like, once people know you, they don't care. It's funny, people assume I don't have a degree, and they're surprised that I do. Because, again, they think a company, he must not have a degree, and, but do these things, put yourself out there. But people don't care. But it never stops people from working with me. Because they'll still work with me. They'll still be like, look, I like you. I like what you're about. I know you can solve the problem that I have. I'll use you. As like, oh, you do have a degree. Okay. I had no idea. So that's one thing. The other thing is, a lot of times it's also self-inflicted, where a lot of people without degrees don't think that they can compete with the people with degrees, and they have this doubt. So here's the thing, what I tell my job seekers. You can't focus on what you don't have, because the universe of what you don't have will always be bigger than what you have. Like, I don't have enough experience, right? This guy has to. There'll always be someone with more experience than you. There'll always be someone who has maybe something else that you don't have. Like, I have a gap. The other people don't have a gap. How do I compete? But the fact is, focus on what you do have. You may have a gap, but you may have this other unique experience. You may not have a degree, but you've worked with XYZ. You've gotten to this point without the degree, and how did you do it? So focus on what you do have, because if you focus on what you don't have, you're coming from a position of less power. You're not coming from a position of power. You got to focus on, hey, this is me. This is who I am. I may not have everything, but here's what I do have to offer. Here's why you should hire me.
Excellent.
How can someone show their strengths then? How do you demonstrate that? Because to get in the door, you're showing a resume.
Yeah.
So how can someone get around that? I don't have the same degree as this person, but I know that I know marketing better than most. I just didn't get a degree in it, but I'm a savant in marketing.
Yeah. So network. I think, one thing, network is so underrated, and then it's so I see it all the time. Like, people don't network, and it's like, why? You're like, really? And I've told people, even like people who are like they have like low emotional intelligence, but they networked a little, and it got them pretty far. Right? It got them like much farther. So networking goes far. The other thing is having a well-formatted resume. I've seen thousands of resumes. A lot of people with degrees, they don't have good resumes. They rely on the fact that they have a degree and they went to the same school and they get across. So if you come across and you have a good resume that is well formatted, and you highlight your accomplishments properly, and you do these things, and you're strategic about applications, right? That you have to be smart about how you apply. You can get in front of them, and then once you're in front of them, they're just gonna be like, "Wow, I didn't realize you don't have a degree." Like, you're gonna see a lot of people have that. They assume, like, once you do well, they assume you have a degree, and that's kind of like with my company. I want to remove that stigma, like the assumption that just because you're smart that you have to have a degree. Like, the only assumption should be that it's like, if you're smart, hey, you worked hard at it and you did your stuff, and you care about learning. I think that's the only assumption, not the fact that you had to have a degree.
Elon Musk, I think it was, put a post out this week sometime, I believe, and it said that it was alluding to the problem, and it said, though 18-year-olds have no problems getting $100,000 in loans to go to school, but it's near impossible for them to get a $20,000 loan to start a business.
Yeah. Now, look, I wouldn't give either, because I think, like, people should have to prove themselves. But yeah, and I think the big issue is parents are the big issues, because I wouldn't let my, first of all, parents pay for it. Like the moment a kid is born, they're like, I'm going to save for college. And they save for whatever, 15 to 20 years. And then think about it. If you told a business, I saved 20 years for your product, do you think they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to give you a discount? Or they're going to be like, you know what? I think we should charge you even more, right? That's what happens, right? And then what happens is parents have no issue taking out these loans and, you know, not understanding, because again, parents, unfortunately, some advice they give is good, but times changed from the 20 years that you were born and the, you know, when they grew up and they did their things. Like, it's a different time. Like in the 90s, you could major in music and go work at IBM just because you had a degree. Now it's like you can major in music and your local band will reject you, you know? So it's a totally different time.
You offer personalized career strategy. What do you mean by that? I mean, in your own terms, can you kind of define that for us?
So I make them take the test. I'm a UMAP certified coach, so I have them take the Gallup Strength Finder test. I look at their strengths, and a lot of it's asking questions and really digging deep down, because you know what thing is, like I was talking to someone the other day, and it's like high school guidance counselors suck. Like in terms of careers, like high schools, they don't give any like thing. They're only like 5 jobs, like a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and accountant, and maybe like, oh, you're gonna work a trade because you're a bum or something, right? That's usually the perspective. So a lot of parents are, you know, unfortunately, like a lot of our parents, they sort of got a job. They're like, hey, I got a family to take care of, but your job can be more than that. Like, you can actually be fulfilled by your job. You can actually be good at your job. You can actually sort of like your job, right? So I think that perspective is something that's not really taught. And you may see it online where it's like, hey, do what you love and never work in a day of your life. But you got to somewhat get in the middle where it's like, do something you're good at. You don't have to love it, because, you know, also most people, if they had enough money, they wouldn't work. Like, it's just the truth, right? You'd kind of do something different. But you don't have to, you know, if you're going to commit to something that you're spending whatever 30 to 60 hours a week, you should somewhat like it, and it should grow you as a person, and it should sort of, you know, really teach you a lot of things. So that I kind of sit down and I kind of give them realistic ideas of like, hey, here's how the jobs actually are, because most people have an idealized version of the jobs that they go for. They just think like, hey, I'm going to work in business and therefore I'm going to be a CEO. And it's like, look, there's a lot of politics in business. There's a lot of like failed things in sales. You're going to get rejected. Like, you know, garbage men are known for making good money. And I have my business partner's friend is a garbage man. And he's like, look, when he started, he had to go in the thing and there were like maggots in his boots and stuff. I mean, he's getting paid well, but this is like a reality, right? It's like, there's so many, I can't tell you how many I've heard, definitely a decent amount of times where people wanted to, you know, they went to nursing school, they went to whatever, and then they realize they don't like blood. But it's like, dude, that should be like the first thing. Like, you know, you should have at least shadowed a doctor. It should be part of the program. That I see so many people that they do these things and the real job is so different than how it was portrayed to be or what they envisioned it to be, because they just watch TV. So I think people have to really sit down and kind of do a deep dive and sit back.
So I'm a proponent of, and most people are not a fan of this, but I'm a proponent of 18-year-olds coming out of high school not jumping into college.
Yeah,
because you're asking a kid he's still a kid. I mean, he's an adult legally, but let's be honest. I mean, it's like one day they can basically get no legal trouble, but the next day, now you're an adult. Yeah. Don't mess up. You're going to jail.
Yeah.
And then within the next few months, you need to decide how you want to spend $50,000 to $100,000 to sort of navigate the rest or give a direction to the rest of your career. And I just think it's I've switched my degree multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do. It just adds to what you spend in school. So I'm an advocate of, why don't you give it a few years? Go work some places, go travel some places, just go mess some things up and see what you'd like to do. And like, find out what you're good at, what you love, what's your hot button? How do you feel about that?
No, I'm a big proponent of that. Now, look, I will encourage some kids to go to school, because some kids at 18 know exactly what they want to do, and for them it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's in any system where you go for a one-size-fits-all solution, there are winners and there are losers. The winners tend to be very well off. If you're 18, know what you want to do, you graduate 22, 23, you have a good job, good. Now, if you're a loser, then it's like you're 6 years to graduate. You're not a loser. You're just a loser under the system. You're 6 years to graduate. You don't know what you want to do. You hated your major. And it's like, it doesn't have to be, again, like where that 18-year-old, you said the 20-year-old has 18 months to figure it out. Take time to figure yourself out. Work a job, do these things, do projects, get internships, shatter yourself. See, because a lot of times it's like, I've seen people, they're like, hey, I like this job, I could actually do it, and I'm happy with it, I can move up. And then, maybe if you do want to go to college, take a class or two, but I think you should always spend some time learning something that could just develop your career and just develop your just emotional maturity.
Are you seeing more companies start to forego the degree and just focus on internal training?
Yes, more than before. Like, there are actually articles about it. So here's the thing. It's becoming more common, but it's not as common as it should be because it's still a bias and they still have to jump through hoops. But, it's as with anything, first it has to be publicly said, and then it's going to slowly happen, because it takes years for this to happen, because, yes, they publicly did it for PR reasons and this and that, and maybe they wanted to, but here's the thing. You have a bunch of people who work at the company who have degrees. Where do they recruit? Oh, let's go to my college. They don't even know how to recruit someone without a degree. Where do I go? You actually have to go to the nonprofit that helps the local youth, and that's going to give you someone. But they don't have those connections with the charity. They kind of do. And they kind of refer their friends. Who are their friends? The people they went to college to. So it's like one of those things that it takes time. But now as the people without degrees get in, now they start developing more diversity. So it's one of those things. That's one of the things I sort of do is like, how do you find this talent, right? Because a lot of times people go for diversity and equity inclusion, and they just end up going for, I'll go to a historic black college, right? That's where we'll get our black students, or I'll go to this place, or, we'll get. But what ends up happening is you still leave out this demographic of people who never go to college, but who are very hardworking, who just need a chance, or who need some guidance, or, who are just never given a chance. And then you kind of have to really go to the nonprofits who help, like, the homeless youth get back to their feet. And, these are people who, like, you give them a job, they're like, wow, this is going to really get me off and really change my life. So you kind of have to do that. You have to go to these alternate places, like, charities that help, like, women break into technology, right? Because there's always in everything, there's always a bias, right? Like, tech is very male dominated. So it's like, you have to go to these nonprofits because that's their mission and that's their resources. And they'd love to have, like, these feeder programs.
I think another good option, if those people that don't want to get a degree, is getting certifications, especially in the technology field. I'm in IT. John's in cybersecurity. We both have degrees, but if I didn't have a degree, I could get certifications. I can get C++. I can get Linux. I can get several things that wouldn't take 4 years.
Yeah,
I can maybe just literally 3-4 week course.
Yeah.
And that would bump my pay up significantly just from a certification. I mean, and that applies in a lot of different areas.
I love technology because it's like you just show it and it's like, okay, this guy CISSP, right? That's what it is. Cybersecurity. He's a certified ethical hacker. They have AWS, they have Azure, they have Google Cloud. Marketing has some certifications. I would recommend, like, Google Analytics has a certification, Google Ads has a certification. So all these things, that's why I love technology. And what's funny? John works in cybersecurity, and I saw this on Twitter. Actually, it was like you require degrees in cybersecurity, but the guy who hacked your company doesn't have a degree. Which is really true. Like, I know a decent amount about cybersecurity, and, like, these people are on, like, online chats and all this stuff, and a lot of times it's very self-taught. Like, how do you learn to hack a credit card machine? You don't learn that in school. You're not going to be taught by someone in school. You don't know how these work, and you don't know. So from a security perspective, a lot of times things are an art. And you have to sort of be involved in communities and be involved outside. So it's like you really want to just expose yourself as just many things.
I mean, we live in an information age. There's a lot of things that I've told John, if I don't know how to do something, I'll get my little certification off of YouTube University. And I'll watch a video, I'll do something and learn a skill just like that off of online for free.
No, and you know what? It's interesting. So I was an actuary. So I got a math degree. I got and I passed the math exam. So if you realize I use like analytics and insight and the way they're thinking, but a lot of times, like, my content creation has nothing to do with math, right? The other things that I'm doing, my networking has nothing to do with math. A lot of things I learned reading books. There's so much in books, and I would recommend, like, YouTube is good and stuff and all that, but I would recommend books are a gold mine of information. Like, it's like, think about, like, a documentary that's like 30 hours. That's a book, right? Because books just have so much. And then I've learned a lot just from Reddit comments, subreddits, forums, like I've learned so much just from forums and stuff. And it's like, they're still a great source. Like I learned things from random ticket. So once you have a learning mindset, wherever you go, you can honestly learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I heard one thought you had on the different areas of working. My brother-in-law, he did go to school, but he didn't want to work in that. He got a 3-week certification on building websites.
Dude, that's awesome.
And he just hammered it out. And then he got picked up by one company for, I don't know, 50 or 60 grand. Another company asked him to come on instead for a bigger project, made 70. Another one, he makes close to 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
And he does not use a degree. He just took a 3-week course and he learned his craft and he's pretty good at it. And he builds websites, complicated ones like, racetrack type things for like horse racing and stuff like that, where they got to constantly be moving. But it's what he does. And he makes 6-figure income or close to it. I don't know exactly what. Very respectable income. And for the Midwest anyways, where we live. And it'd be probably more if he was out in another part of the country. But
yeah, I mean, look, nowadays there's so many, and there's so many free, and they're paid too. I would recommend sometimes getting a paid course, because sometimes having make sure you check your reviews, or if you know someone who's done it, ask someone who's done the course, and you can really have a cohort of people, because that network is pretty good, and then you learn from other people, and just do it in a group. I think a lot of times doing it in a group helps it become so much easier when you realize, hey, you're not alone and there are other people that you could reach out to help. And YouTube is just such a gold mine. People learn how to fix cars from it. People learn it, and a lot of times you do it, you have all this knowledge. When you go to an interview, they'll be like, what? How'd you know that? Like, how'd you know that the 1969 thing has a different door handle? All these things. When they once you know like that level of detail, right? Because they'll like really respect your knowledge. They'll see that you actually have the passion.
I know we're kind of winding down here, but there's a lot of talk about the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? People quitting their jobs at incredible rates. What is your thoughts on that? And it's a couple parts. Yeah. I think one, there's got to be plenty of opportunities open for somebody who wants a job.
Yes.
But then two, my gut feeling on the resignation is most people are wanting to just kind of do something on their own, because there's options now that there's never been. Yeah. It's too easy to start something. What is your thoughts?
So the Great Resignation is a very complex issue, and there are a lot of moving parts, and I'll try to digest it in as easily understood. So the pandemic happened, right? Now, you had anywhere from like 700,000 to 1 million people that died. I mean, you can look at excess debt. So whatever the cause of that, right? A lot of people died, right? So therefore, they were out of the workforce. Once you're dead, you're out of the workforce, right? So, and now, look, a good amount of them were older, but you did lose at least a couple 100,000 who were working, right? You had a lot. I think it's like 1 to 2 million people who retired early. Like, I know a lot of people, they're close to retirement, then they're like, look, I'm going to get the unemployment. I'm done, life. And it changed mentality. People like, there's more to life. Like, people lost loved ones. They're like, look, I'm going to relax. Like, I've met people who were like CEOs of companies, and they were ready to work forever. And then they're like, you know what? I just want to take 2 more years and then kind of leave. The other thing is, now with the availability of remote work, daycare is one of the rising costs in this country. It's like super expensive. Now the thing is, it's like, and I know it's like at least 1 to 2K, and it could be even more. So now the thing is, it's like 2K, right? And you got to think, to pay 2K, you got to make like 3K pre-tax, or let's say like 3K pre-tax, right? So now it's like, do I need to sort of make that money when it's like, we could have one person focus on the job, we could move remotely, and a lot of people scale down their lifestyles. They're like, hey, you know what? We're making 200,000, but how about we make 120 to 150? We have some savings, but we don't need 2 cars. We'll go for an older car. We'll kind of scale back that lifestyle. We'll cook more. Right. We'll live in a more lower cost of living area. That's what's really happening. I've seen a lot of my clients are like, look, you know what? How about I just live with my in-laws for 2 years, save that money, and then I could get a house, and I don't need to, right? So that's what's happening. Like, it's not that people don't want to work. It's that, and I see a lot of older people like, oh, no one wants to work. I was like, dude, you pay someone, you give them a good job, you give them a good salary, most people will work, right? Most people are not going to turn it down. It's just how it is. Like, most people aspire a little more than just kind of sitting at home, right? And
go ahead.
Yeah, 2 of your best employees
are part-time.
Yeah.
Because they want to be.
Yeah.
One works remote. She wants to work remote, has kids.
Yeah.
And she's a rock star. And the other one works in my office, But we asked her, do you want to be full-time or do you want to keep going and we'll just give you a raise or whatever, and she's like, no, I like my hours. Perfect. Yeah. Gave her a big boost. And I mean, they make full-time type of incomes.
Yeah.
With respect, but they love having their balance of raising kids or grandkids.
Yeah.
And they kill it when they're here. I mean, they never miss time.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing that people don't realize. It's like that old school of like, hey, you gotta, work hard. I'm not saying don't work hard, but that you gotta give up your family. You gotta give up all these things. It's like people are kind of challenging that, and it's like doing it for what? Doing it for a company that's gonna furlough you or gonna fire you, and then the thing is, the executives never get touched. The executive salary. It's one thing if like the executives like, look, we're not gonna take any money. We're gonna make sure that. And some companies have done that, right? But other companies, it's just like, oh, we're going to get bonuses. They're going to do their thing and they're going to live on private jets. So I think the Great Resignation is really a shift just in how people think. It's a shift in realizing that, look, there's more to life. And if I'm going to work, I want to get compensated properly because I've seen it. So many people were underpaid. Like I remember one of my, someone I know, let's say he was making like $60K, right? He was supposed to get a raise that year. They're like, oh, we have no budget for a raise, but he got a small bonus, right? Like $5-6K. So he understood. And then he found out that his boss told all the coworkers, don't tell him that you got raises. He didn't. He saw his boss's tax returns. He looked at, guy made like $400K. And it's like, dude, you couldn't give me think about it. That means he gave you a zero. He couldn't give you a two. He couldn't take 2,000 less in salary to give you a 2K raise. Like, a measly. He could even do that. It just shows that I've seen a lot of people, and I've seen the books where it's like they're making killings, and they can't even give that employees, like their margins are so big. So a lot of people are just like, look, you have one life to live. You really got to live it for yourself. And then I would say, look, it's better to scale back your lifestyle. Use the extra time to learn a skill that's more in demand. And you know what? The other thing is, like retail, people are realizing, look, I don't want to work in a restaurant where I get cursed out by someone who wants to, because I'm just an employee telling them, hey, these are the rules, and they get mad at me, or I get spit on, or I get harassed. They're like, look, screw that. I'm going to go work in tech where if I'm customer service, someone curses at me, I'm still at home in my pajamas. Who cares, right? So you're getting a lot of people who are like, look, these jobs are just not, they're just not it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonaed, leave our audience with one last piece of advice or just something that's on your heart that you think that would be a benefit to them.
Let me see what would be a benefit. I think the biggest benefit that I would kind of see is I would say the biggest skill, one of the strongest skills I have is self-awareness. And I think self-awareness is a skill that regardless of what you do is very important to have. It's okay not to be good at everything. Just know what you're good at and hone in on your strengths. I think you don't have to do everything, just do a few things well. I started succeeding more in my life when I started doubling down on my strengths. There's some things I'm bad at, and I've stopped fighting it. I know I'm not going to be good at those things, and it's okay, right? Obviously, I won't be so terrible at those things that it'll impact my life, but I'll be good at the things I'm good at, and that's what's going to make me successful. So a lot of times, people are, focus on their weaknesses so much. It's figure out what you're good at, focus on that, double down on that, and you can see that magical things will happen.
Stay connected with Jonaed. One of the ways you can do that is on Instagram at No Degree Podcast. You also can connect with him on LinkedIn, where he's doing a lot of great things and has a lot of things to offer, resources there. Jonaed Iqbal. You can connect with him there on LinkedIn. Stay connected with us here on Unscripted at Unscripted Leadership on all social media platforms. Also check out our website, unscripted-leadership.com. And of course, listen to the podcast available on all streaming platforms. Again, we say thank you to our special guest, Jonaed Iqbal, for coming on and having this amazing conversation on why a college degree does not define your success. As always, we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. We're here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide.